we look at the world, there are good guys and there are bad guys. We've just heard that from Melanie. There are good guys, there are bad guys, there are people for peace, there are people who oppose racism and anti-Semitism, and then there are racists and there are aggressors. It's a mistake to characterize the good guys and the bad guys in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of this world or that world, this civilization or that civilization. And that's the key error which is made by the people who break the consensus for peace on both sides, is to essentialize one community or one set of people as the good guys and the other as the bad guys. In truth, it's a battle over democracy and anti-democracy, and that battle goes on within every nation, within every people, within every religion. The current situation with Israel occupying Palestinian cities, towns and villages is not stable, it's not peaceful, it's not democratic, and it's not just. In 1947, the Zionist movement embraced the compromise proposed by UN Resolution 181 to partition mandate Palestine between Israelis and Arabs. Zionism created a broad and enduring consensus amongst Israelis, amongst Jews, and within democratic opinion across the world that Israel would be constituted alongside a Palestinian state. The declaration of Israeli independence could not have been clearer about Zionism's commitment to relating to its non-Jewish neighbors in the spirit of democracy and of equality. Among the core principles of Zionism, of the Zionist consensus which were laid out in that document, one, democracy in its proper sense, not just the fiat of the majority, but equality, liberty, the rule of law. Two, opposition to racism. Three, striving for good relations with neighboring peoples and states. In 48, 67, and 73, Arab states, states which defined themselves on the basis of Arab ethnicity, tried to eliminate Israel. It's worth pausing for a moment to consider the enormity of that statement. 3 years after the defeat of the Nazis, armies were on the move again to displace and to murder Jews, and then again 19 years later, and yet again 6 years after that. These armies were defeated, not by the international community, not by anti-racist solidarity, not by the United Nations, not by the global left, but by the Jewish state for and by itself. In 1967, the Sinai was occupied by Israel, but later given back to Egypt as part of a peace agreement. It's a cold peace, but it is a peace. It is an absence of war. Gaza was occupied. Israel later withdrew without a peace agreement. The anti-Semitic Hamas was allowed to claim the land and to claim the victory. The West Bank was occupied by Israeli forces under the protection of the military occupation. Israeli governments have supported a civilian settlement policy. The political movement which spearheaded the civilian occupation was a departure from the secular, democratic, Zionist consensus which had made and defended Israel, Jewish sovereignty in Israel. The settler movement insisted that a necessary element of Jewish religious observance was participation in the political and military project of settling the West Bank. It fought to establish a new principle that this political project was mandated by the Torah. One aim of the settler movement was to create facts. It wanted to create a situation where self-rule for the Arabs who live in the West Bank would become impossible. In my view, the settlement movement did not act in the enlightened self-interest of Israel. However, it was always a minority movement, often bitterly resented by ordinary Israelis who were forced to risk their soldiers and spend their money on a project that did not express their values. Israel offered an end to the occupation in 2001. Arafat refused. In 2008, Abbas refused. The elected leaders of the Palestinians said no to a peaceful end to the occupation. Many thought that anti-Semitism had climaxed in the Holocaust and died with the Nazis. But new anti-Semitisms emerged out of the ashes of old ones. Hatred of Jews had been stoked by the Islamists since the 1920s, fueled by Hitler and his collaborator, the Mufti. given socialist credibility by the Stalinists and the others, and reinvigorated by the Iranian Holocaust denial regime. I think anti-Semitism is as much a cause of the conflict as of its persistence as it is the result of the conflict. This plays out in ever more frightening ways here in Britain. We have a leader of the Labour Party who said that Hamas and Hezbollah are dedicated to peace and justice in the Middle East. He jumped to the defense of the blood libeller and to the defense of the Church of England conspiracist. He supports the boycott movement against Israel and only Israel. Ken Livingstone says that Hitler supported Zionism. Livingstone has been doing it for years. In 1982, he published a cartoon of Begin in an SS uniform doing a straight-arm salute, standing on a pile of skulls. In 2006, he baited a Jewish journalist, saying he was just like a German war criminal. That's what Livingstone does. He baits Jews. At Oxford University Labour Club, they sing bombs over Tel Aviv. The president of NUS supports the killing of Israelis. The campaign of street murder, which Malia Bouattia supports, is based on anti-Semitism and is designed to give Israelis a visceral fear of the Palestinians they see about them. It is conceived by anti-Semites, and it is designed to foster racism and Islamophobia amongst Jews. Let's not oblige it. Len McCluskey, the biggest union boss in the country, says that the row over anti-Semitism within the Labour Party is a cynical attempt to challenge Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. Yes, the Livingstone formulation. Opposing anti-Semitism, we're taught, is the dirtier trick than the anti-Semitism itself. But back to the point at issue tonight, I think people underestimated the strength and the persistence of anti-Semitism. People thought of Israel as the solution to anti-Semitism. It was the life raft, it was the homecoming for the undead Jews of Europe, the expelled Jews of the great cities of the Middle East, and the Jews who limped away from the Soviet Union. But in some sections of Israeli society, demonizing and racist attitudes to Arabs and Muslims are also all too normal. One of the arguments against the occupation is that it coarsens Israeli society and culture, ruling over people who resent your rule, ruling by force rather than by authority, is corrosive. We all watched the video of 19-year-old Israeli soldier Sergeant Elor Azaria, who executed a Palestinian prisoner in violation of IDF orders, in violation of Zionist ethics, in violation of the laws of war. In violation of the laws of war. Be quiet. Be quiet.
We have time for debate. We'll have time for debate later. We'll have time for debate.
Can we please have some decorum? Can we allow the speaker to finish? We will have an opportunity to have a debate. Let's have the speaker finish. Thank you very much.
No, I'm not done. This is feeling a bit like defending Israel in a student union. It's an appalling way to behave, actually. So, the soldier is charged with murder and is undergoing due process. But the alarming thing is the existence of a noisy, fervent minority of Israelis well represented in this room who consider him a hero. Israel should do more to show that it does not want to rule over the Palestinians. Israel is not the aggressor. Israel does not want other people's land. Israel does not want to drive anybody out. It should say this daily to itself and also to the world. One of the key ways in which Israel is wronged is that people think Israel, if only it wanted to, could end the occupation and end the conflict. It can't, not just by an act of will. The idea that Israel chooses conflict when it could just choose peace is a libel. It also infantilizes Palestinians, denying them any responsibility for their own choices. Israel can't create a democratic Palestinian state, and it can't create a Palestinian national movement willing and able to live alongside it in peace. That there is currently no partner for peace on the Palestinian side is a strong argument. Well, Palestinians could also be forgiven for failing to recognize the current Israeli government as a partner for peace. I do not say we could have peace tomorrow, but I do insist that in the long term, what Israel wants, what Israel needs, is peace. The key issue of our time is democracy. Not just voting, but democratic values, democratic norms, democratic laws. How will we defeat the Islamist threat? We will defeat it by offering something better. Democracy. We must forge a global coalition of people who want democracy. That's how we divide the good guys and the bad guys. It's political, it's not racial, it's not ethnic, it's not Arab world against Western world. That's how we do it. Of course, we need to be prepared to defend democratic movements and democratic republics by force. But the fight against Islamism is always also a fight for freedom. Not a clash between civilizations, but a clash for civilization. Democracy can defeat totalitarianism. How will we defeat anti-Semitism? With democratic and rational alternatives, understandings of how things really work, how they might improve, not hate-filled lies and resentful nightmares. How will we defend Israel? With courage, with unity, with arms, but also with democratic values. Israel's existence is a democratic value, backed up by overwhelming force. Israel seeks peace with its neighbors. This is a political perspective. The status quo is unstable. Either there will be peace or there will be some kind of final victory for one side or the other. A peace agreement may seem utopian, but sometimes the universe of the possible changes quickly. I can assure you of this. Peace and liberty cannot be won through the driving out or the subjugation either of Arabs or of Jews. Such dreams are not only utopian, they're also horrible.